Uri Factor's on tonight.
I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
Exactly who is organizing the racial protests across the country? They are coordinated, and we will have a Factor investigation.
African American men are still more likely to be stopped and searched by police, charged with crimes, and sentenced to longer prison terms.
But Mrs. Clinton doesn't say why that's happening, and she surely knows. We'll take a hard look at it.
Do you think it's a racial issue?
I really doubt it. It was about the officer's pride.
Also tonight, the daughter of the late Eric Gardner speaks about the very controversial case.
This is a national crisis.
Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Who is organizing the racial protests breaking out across America? That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. First of all, peaceful protest is good. It's a hallmark of America. If you feel something is unfair, if you feel that, you should demonstrate your dissent. We saw the Tea Party do that a few years ago. We're seeing folks who think policing is unfair to blacks doing that today. But some responsibility goes along with protesting, especially if your actions are causing distress to other people. Simply put, you need to know what you're talking about. The claim that American police are hunting down young black men is a lie, a blatant lie. We have posted statistics on BillO'Reilly.com that refute any theory along those lines, so please check that out. But in some places, African Americans are not being treated with proper respect. That's also true. And if you deny it, you're not living in the real world. Now, the Factor has learned that the New York City protests are being coordinated by hardcore far-left activists. The main crew seems to be This Stops Today, a group of professional agitators who use social media to organize street confrontations. Aligned with this group are a variety of grievance organizations with names like Hoodies for Justice and Communities United for Police Reform. The demonstrations you are seeing are not spontaneous dissent from regular folks. Rather, they are well-planned disruptions from a professional anti-establishment provocateurs. That's important to understand, because it is the American system that's being attacked by these people, not the individual sagas of Michael Brown and Eric Garner. Unfortunately, the deaths of those two men are being used by the far left to foment unrest. According to reporting by the Wall Street Journal, as soon as the Garner grand jury decision was announced, instantly, Twitter and Facebook messages were blasted out by people using hashtags like I Can't Breathe and Black Lives Matter. Again, this was organized, designed to create as much chaos as possible. Last night here in New York City, more than 200 protesters were arrested, but in other cities around the country, the demonstrations were much less intense. New York is ground zero for the hard left right now, as it was for the Occupy movement. The Factor has learned that the radical left SEIU labor union deeply involved in the racial protests, as are a number of other groups funded by the shadowy radical George Soros. So once again, there is nothing spontaneous about any of this. One person who has emerged as a voice of reason is Eric Gardner's daughter, Erica.
Do you think it's a racial issue?
I really doubt it. It was about the officer's pride. It was about my father being 6'4" and 350 pounds, and he wanted to be, you know, the top cop that brings this big man down because he's just big.
It was brave of Ms. Gardner to downplay the racial aspect. But many politicians are not doing that.
Because despite all the progress we've made together, African Americans, most particularly African American men, are still more likely to be stopped and searched by police, charged with crimes, and sentenced to longer prison terms.
Well, Mrs. Clinton knows why black men are being scrutinized by police, and also why they get more jail time. She was a senator here in New York. It goes to guns and drugs. Inner-city drug gangs like the ones in Chicago right now are a plague upon the land, murdering thousands of innocent people across the country, destroying poor neighborhoods. When was the last time you heard Hillary Clinton, or most other politicians for that matter, put that on the table? And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction with us, Fox News senior correspondent Geraldo Rivera. Before we begin, I want to tell the audience that there are probably not in this country two more experienced journalists than you and me on the streets of New York. We have literally grown up here. We have spent decades on the streets of New York. Both you and I know this city as well as any human being on earth. We both know the police department. We know the politicians here. We know them all personally. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we agree.
All right. So Rivera and I are as qualified as anyone to talk about what's happening in New York City at this moment. Do you disagree with my talking points memo?
I think that to a certain extent, what you said is wishful thinking. I think that having waded through two of those demonstrations, as I know you did, on Wednesday night. One was on 75th Street and Amsterdam Avenue when I was up there for the Bob Dylan concert. The other, they surrounded my car on 5th Avenue and 45th Street when I was going to do the Hannity show on Wednesday night. And I can tell you that the vast majority of the people I saw were young people motivated by a sincere outrage and coordinated by social media. I think that part is right. It's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's Instagram. They can create a flash mob. Meet me at 48th Street and
That's
7th
right.
Avenue at 12:15.
So I don't know where you're disagreeing, because I said these are not spontaneous demonstrations.
Because I think that if you were to compare what happened Wednesday night and last night, for example, with the minimum wage demonstrations that are going on in front of McDonald's across the country, those truly are orchestrated by SEIU and the other union movement, and it is a ploy to unionize those workers. I happen to agree that they should be getting more money, but those are clearly orchestrated, organized protests. What I saw last night was a millennial generation, and the night before, a millennial generation finally getting off their mother's couch in the basement, getting their face away from the computer screen, and going out there and putting their butts on the line for something that they are rich.
For what?
They are deeply motivated, Bill, by a sense, however right or wrong, that there is a great racial divide in this country and that black people are getting the short end of the stick.
All right. So it's not Garner and it's not Michael Brown. It's the overarch that blacks don't get a fair play.
But you don't believe blacks get a fair play, do you?
That's a complicated question. All right. I believe that it's harder to succeed in America for people of color. But I believe the avenues exist if the people of color take them, choose to take them.
Absolutely.
Okay?
And this is the land of opportunity.
Let me say one more thing. I do not believe there is a police jihad, holy war against minorities.
Me either.
I do not believe they are being hunted down and singled out for brutal treatment. I believe in some cases there is bad policing and corrupt policing, as there has been from the dawn of mankind.
Let me just state one fact that is incontrovertible. There are many black mothers that tonight are more fearful that their sons will get jacked up by cops than they are by crooks.
I don't believe that.
That is
I
absolutely
do not believe
true. They
that
go
in
out there.
Bedford-Stuyvesant, New York, or East New York, or in the Bronx, that mothers are more fearful of the police than the local dope dealer on the street with the Glock. I don't believe it.
Well, you know, all I can tell you is from my personal experience, people that I talk to, they are fearful.
Okay,
they are worried.
let me
It may
cut- I
be
can cut
that
this-
statistically you're right.
I can
I'm
cut
talking about
this.
the reality of urban life
I
today.
can cut your myth to shreds right now.
It's not a myth.
In Chicago, do you think the people on the South Side are more fearful
You were
of the
talking
police?
about New York.
No,
You were
I'm talking
New
about
York.
no. You brought it out to the racial divide. Generally speaking,
in New York, there are moms who are more fearful of the cops than the crooks.
I don't believe it.
Newark, New Jersey, across the Hudson River, we've had 12 shootings since Sunday.
Yeah, who's shooting?
It's dope dealers shooting other dope dealers and plenty of innocent people getting.
That's
I
right.
understand that is the underlying cause that creates the instances
Well, how come Hillary Clinton
where
doesn't
friction
know
can
it?
happen.
How come Hillary Clinton doesn't know it?
The dysfunction of the urban family and the
dodging my
crime
question.
in the urban family.
How come Hillary Clinton doesn't know it?
Hillary Clinton knows Hillary
why
Clinton
didn't she
does.
say?
Because there's two things going on
She's
here.
exploiting it.
There's two things going on here. Number one is the big picture. There is urban crime and decay and a cancer. That is a big, big thing that our
that
leaders,
drives
our
the
urban
other.
leaders have not tried to get their
That
arms around
drives
and
the
do
other.
not drive. And it drives the other.
Yes.
And I agree with you.
Good.
That's what creates the situations where the cops have the interface with the kids and sometimes with tragic results. But you cannot deny that there are millions of people being motivated tonight, Bill, because they are fearful of the police.
Okay.
I love the cops. I came here hugging two cops.
I'm going to deny it, but that's okay. That was a really good debate. Thank you for having me. Next on the rundown, Mike Huckabee will give us his take on the protests. Then, Dana Perino says I might have overreacted to the Ferguson situation. Oh, really, Dana? We're coming right back.